So, you're teaching a lesson and a student becomes disruptive. What do you do? This is an interview question that just about any principal is going to ask a teaching candidate. And I know a great answer. You could say, I would pull the student to the side and have a brief conversation about why she's being disruptive, and then I would reteach my expectations. This seems like a great answer, and it helped me find a job. But then when I got into the classroom and started teaching, I found that those side conversations didn't really work. When I pulled the student to the side and asked her what kept her from meeting my expectations, she would shrug her shoulders and avoid eye contact. The conversation I had hoped to have quickly became just a lecture. And as teachers, we know that lectures are just about the least effective way to teach somebody something new. Sorry, Ted. So I asked my students, what do I need to do to get you to change your behavior? Send us to the discipline office, they said. And that's when I understood. The zero tolerance policies that my students had grown up with had taught them that unless they were punished for their behavior, it didn't need to change. Zero tolerance was a trend in school discipline that began in the late 1980s. Under zero tolerance, schools issued severe and automatic punishments for things, even minor infractions. Remember the sixth grader in Seattle who was expelled for bringing a squirt gun to school? Or the 6-year-old in North Carolina who was suspended for kissing a classmate on the cheek? Or the students in Chicago who were suspended for 10 days for being caught in the halls after the bell rang? Research told us that zero tolerance doesn't work. It doesn't increase school safety. It doesn't improve school climate. If anything, it pushes our children out of school. A student who is suspended even once is twice as likely to drop out. Parents and community members fought for years to end zero tolerance, including the Community Youth Justice Initiative. And in 2006, after this long, hard fight, Chicago Public Schools became one of the first districts in the country to adopt an alternative approach known as restorative justice. But while the policies around zero tolerance started to change, the culture stuck around. Students are still suspended for up to 10 days for fighting. They're still removed from the classroom for things that have nothing to do with school safety, such as coming to school out of uniform or cutting class. Yes, the punishment for not going to class is having to miss class. And I can bet that at many schools throughout this city, despite the fact that restorative justice was adopted 7 years ago into our student code of conduct, that many people still don't really know what it is. But restorative justice advocates are still working hard to support its implementation in schools. Lots of high schools start by forming what's known as a peer jury. It's not what it sounds like. Students don't judge their peers and they don't issue punishments. Instead, they ask open-ended questions, and they listen empathetically to determine the needs of both the victim and the offender so that they can repair the harm and restore their relationship. The goal of a peer jury, just like any restorative practice, is to ensure accountability, increase community safety, and develop social and emotional competencies. At one peer jury hearing that I sat in on, the girl was referred for having cursed at another student in the class. It took the jurors a little while to get the girl to open up, but once she did, she revealed that the student she'd been cursing at was a gang member who had been harassing her on her way home from school. She felt unsafe around this boy, but didn't feel comfortable telling the teacher what was going on. Then, a couple of the jurors revealed that they had also been intimidated by gang members in the past. And they were able to tell the girl the names of a couple of adults in the school who they trusted to address the problem. And they also gave her some strategies about how to protect herself, both in school and in the neighborhood. The student left the jury hearing with a plan for how she was going to restore her relationship with her teacher, and some tools she could use to advocate for herself and protect herself. I think about how, if this girl had just been sent to the discipline office and given a punishment for the rule that she broke of cursing, none of this would have come about. Unfortunately, many students in Chicago public schools are not afforded the same chances that Araceli was given to work on her behavior in school. Despite all of the evidence against it, Chicago public schools issued almost 70,000 out-of-school suspensions last year. This figure seems overwhelming, and it is. But there are things that even a classroom teacher can do on an individual level to start shifting the focus from rules to relationships, from punishment to repairing harm. Talking circles are a safe way for a teacher to build community in the classroom and develop communication skills. Each student shares their story as they feel comfortable, and everybody else just listens. It's incredibly simple and incredibly powerful. One of the most powerful talking circles I led was in my junior level geography class a couple of years ago. This class was full of big personalities, some Black, some Mexican, some Puerto Rican, and over the course of the year, tension had been building between students of different backgrounds. This resulted in some students refusing to work together, and some even making racist comments. Instead of sending these students to the discipline office, though, I decided to see if I could try to break down some of these barriers. So I asked the students to circle their desks, and then I asked them to just start speaking generally about racism in the school. A few of the more outspoken students started talking about how they felt when assumptions were made about them based on their race. Other students spoke up to question whether it was really about racial tension or if it had more to do with gang divisions. They talked about the influence that teachers had on racial tension. The conversation got heated, but it remained respectful as students followed the rules of passing the talking piece around the circle and waiting their turn to speak. At the end of the conversation, I asked the students, what do we need to do to try to solve some of these problems? How should we address them? Their response, we need to have more discussions like this one. After that day, the tension in the classroom started to melt away. I saw what an effect our circle had had when two students, one Black, one Mexican, chose to work together on a project, even though they had terrible arguments all year long with each other before that. It was like some feel-good classroom movie come true.
My parents have always, taught us to talk things out. So I grew up with that, but for other people, I think it's different.
I can speak freely without being judged, or I just feel like in an open environment, like where I can just speak my mind.
You definitely get to say a lot more of the things that you want to say.
And I get to express the way I feel.
You don't get cut off.
I don't have to have anyone judge me for what I say or, so yeah.
We get to say what we want to say, and we get to say whatever.
A lot of adults that only let you say what they want to hear.
And it makes us feel happy to say what we want to get to say.
You feel like really, really good when that feeling of like all the dread and all the stuff that you've been needing to say just lifted off your shoulders when you actually say it.
You can express what you do and don't like.
And you can say exactly what you've been needing to say.
It's fun to hear other people's stories.
You get to know more about people, and people get to know about you.
I like to interact with people in Circle.
Circle helps you interact with more people, just talk to more people.
It just lets me know that I don't have to be fearful about myself, so every time I come to Circle, I can just come out and speak whatever's on my mind.
It helps me think about what
other people really like about the world.
When I first came to this school, I think that I felt like a fish out of water, but when I started participating more, I got to see how everybody interacts, and everybody was just fine about it.
When I first started coming here, I was just sitting here quiet, and I didn't want to talk to people because I didn't know anybody well.
I was so quiet, and I wasn't talking to nobody because I didn't know nobody.
You kind of have a mediator, and you can face the person without fearing that there's something bad's gonna happen, or they're gonna say something that's gonna hurt you really, really bad.
I get close to the circle and talk to them a lot, so I can know them.
I have a best friend named Benito, and I like to know more stuff about him and everybody else in the classroom, so it's really fun.
I shouldn't be feared or intimidated about being in school. I feel like I should be open and free.
It's an easier way than screaming in the hallway and cornering up against lockers.
You get to know what other people like, and you get to share to other people what you like. And I like the questions in a circle. It's sort of a way to start our day off, and we have little games at the end of it, so it's sort of a fun way to start the day off.
Well, what I like about circles is everybody gets a turn.
How did it make you feel?
Smart. It made me feel like a part of this class. It made me feel special. It's just a really fun time to share. It was accidents. Empathy is when somebody is feeling sad and somebody cries because they feel great for that person and they have empathy to help them.
Empathy is something really powerful.
You put your feet in someone else's shoes. If someone falls on the ground, and you fell on the ground before, you know how they feel, and so you try to help them. And you can feel what they can feel.
Pretty much feel what other people are feeling.
Empathy is when everybody's nice, a flower starts to spread.
I've been using restorative justice or circles in one way, shape, or form for many years now, to the point where it's like secondhand nature. I can't even think of what I was doing before. It doesn't make sense to not be in circle for me. So I see it as something where people's voices are valued, places where if it's set up, depending on how a facilitator or how it's set up and goes about, it's a safe space. And it's a space where a lot comes out. And I think that in terms of for the place of restorative justice, it's a place where you can feel that you're not just a mistake, you're more than your mistake.
We had spiritual circles, when we just sit there, we'll pass one of these talking piece, one lady from, she was in the Indian tribe, and she came, she showed us a talking piece, she passed it around, she told us what it symbolizes, and stuff like that. Every Friday there's a different circle. Sometimes we even have circles just out of the blue, you and me.
And the circle is, there's a lot of communication within these circles, and it feels really good to actually connect with the people and be able to share more. In this sharing, it's it breeds this understanding in all of us, and it forms the community that we are now.
In the community, and I think it's cool. I think that it gives students a space to speak from that feels, secure, that makes them feel okay, no, but people are listening to what I'm saying. Everybody feels better. Everybody feels welcome. Everybody feels, I think, safe. And that doesn't mean that you're going to have this perfect classroom just because you do circle, or that things aren't going to happen. That's certainly not what I'm saying. But I am saying that circle, you feel safe, or you feel more confident as a teacher that you have a way of addressing the hard things that come up in a way that's going to value your feelings and the students' feelings. And so I wouldn't teach without circle. Sometimes kids are surprised by what they hear other students say, and they carry it, and it helps them build relationships that maybe otherwise wouldn't have come up, because they're like, oh,
you know, I like what so-and-so said in circle, and I really was surprised what so-and-so said in circle. And then they can kind of build these friendships outside of the circle that otherwise might not have come up. Or they can, you know, when it's between friendships that have already existed, they can say, no, but you said that in circle. Remember how you said you wanted to commit to this, or this is a goal you want to have for yourself. And I think, you know, I think it gives them a different kind of space to have these conversations, because I think it is still, like, there is still this academic undertone. You are still in tone. So, I mean, you are still in school, so the tone is different from the kind of conversations they would necessarily have on their own.
It was good to hear what people had to say about me, because for me, I'm a quiet student. I don't really talk to nobody as much, but when people was talking about me, it was good, because I didn't know people even noticed that much about me. Restorative justice I think it's the way to go. I think that should be every school's way of dealing with a suspension or an expulsion, because it gives a student a fair chance for everybody in the community to see what he really did or she was wrong or not.
Actually, I feel like if anything, like if any student or any child is going through something, even if you're using circle within a family, it really, really helps. Like, say, like, you know, a parent doesn't have the best relationship with their child and they don't know how to communicate with each other. If you use circle and you really talked and, you know, use the circle norms. Circle norms is like, you know, respect the talking piece, respect each other, be your best self, stuff like that. It would make a difference, believe it or not, because when I first came here, I thought circles was a joke. I was like, what is this? I don't want to be here. But circles actually help. It betters your attitude, and then, like, it's peace within yourself.
Muhammad Ali said, if you're the same person at 50 that you were at 20, you wasted 30 years of your life. And so I look at it as we grow and as we evolve, if there's new practices, like kind of opening yourself to the idea that this might actually bring something to the conversation and in context, hopefully create more love, peace, and community. So I would hope that educators believe in the idea of education as a way to feed a revolution of the mind and the heart, and if they're doing that, then I can't imagine another practice that they wouldn't want to incorporate other than restorative justice. I feel like it's one of those things where when you participate and you bear witness to what it can do, like I said, it becomes natural. It becomes a second hand. Like, why wouldn't you sit in a circle instead of lecture? And that has its place too. But why wouldn't you consider making a relationship like that?
One of the most common responses I get from people that have used circles is that they find it incredible. They use words like, this is like magic, Miguel. I mean, we're able to solve conflicts that before were intractable. Relationships are being healed. We're having sincere conversations for the first time. So people are learning about these experiences and realizing that this is something that they can use in their day-to-day life. So I think it's making a huge impact in our communities. So one of the organizations that I've trained is Fe y Alegría in El Salvador. And soon after I had offered training to them, they invited me to come and facilitate a circle at one of their schools where there was a lot of conflict among the teachers. It was basically a polarized group of teachers. And so, together with one of the staff members of Fe y Alegría, I facilitated a circle. And I have to admit that initially I was a little bit anxious because I passed the talking piece and asked the question about, well, how do you feel that the environment is at this school? And people said, fine, great. And I said, oh boy, this circle is not going to work. But then one person said, no, I don't think it's great because such and such. And that comment allowed the beginning of a sincere and honest dialogue. And after the circle, people told me that's the first time we've been able to have a sincere dialogue. And what was beautiful about this circle is that towards the end of the circle, I asked members to say what initiatives each one could take to improve the environment in that school. And each one had something to add, and each one really sincerely expressed what they would be able to do. Now, the problems haven't disappeared in that school, but it's certainly much better than when I first got there. And Fe y Alegría has continued to give follow-up to this school. And so I think circles and restorative practices are a tool that is really helping people, schools, communities in very difficult situations to start having sincere conversations and start taking or assuming responsibility for the difficulties in their community.